All right, welcome everyone. Today is Friday, January 29th, 2021, and I want to call to order the special meeting of the Hemet City Council. Okay, first, can we have a roll call?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good morning, everyone, and members of the City Council. Councilmember Brown. Here. Councilmember Krupa.
Here. Councilmember
Leventhal. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Nails.
Here.
Mayor Meyer.
Here.
For the record, Mayor, all council members are present.
Great, thank you. Next, we will have our prayer and Pledge of Allegiance. Our prayer today is going to be by Pastor Vasquez from the Assembly of God here in Hemet, and then our Mayor Pro Tem Nails will lead us in the pledge salutes. So please stand.
Good morning. I just want to thank everyone for this opportunity. Thank you, Mayor, for the privilege to be able to be here. So today I'll be leading in the moment of prayer. And just where you're at, I just ask if you can just bow your heads and with me, you can just hear. Father God, we come before you, Lord. We want to give you thanks, honor, and glory for all that you do, Lord. We give you thanks because of the opportunity that we have here to be present, Lord. The opportunity that we have for this city council. I ask God for guidance and direction for the leaders of our city. I thank you because though we find ourselves in unprecedented moments, yet we're still here, Lord, with lives. We're still here with a purpose. And as your scripture says that we are created with purpose, God. We're created fearfully and wonderfully. And I ask, Lord, that you continue to lead us, bring guidance and direction to our leaders, Lord, as it's not an easy task, and it's not a task for anyone, but you have appointed the leaders with a purpose, God, and you have them here, and you brought them before you. So I just ask, God, that you continue to bring just victory to this city, and bring creativity, God, bring wisdom and knowledge always. In your name, Jesus, we pray. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we will have communication from the public. Anyone who wishes to speak during this time, we ask that they fill out a speaker comment slip, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
If you could please speak into the mic, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Okay. This is how close do I have to? Oh, there we go.
Wonderful.
Okay, next we have communications from the public. So anyone who wishes to address the council, we ask them to fill out a speaker slip, and they will have 3 minutes to speak. We have people here via teleconference and in person. So do we have any members of the public that wish to speak?
I have not received any speaker cards, Madam Mayor, so no speaker cards for those present.
Okay. All right, well, first we are going to go over a little bit of the purpose of these sessions and an overview, a format. But before we start, we're going to go around, and not that we need icebreakers, but let's just talk about some other things. I want everyone to share. This is kind of funny, but so that we get to know each other. I got to know some things about Russ Brown this week. Had some boxer stickers on his car, and we had some good bonding time. So, okay, so if we go around the table today, and let's first start by something maybe a little different, but why don't you tell us all maybe a favorite vacation that you went on? It's just in 2 or 3 words, but so that we understand what you enjoy. Do you want to go first? I can go first, but you can go. Okay, I'll go first. I would say, and I didn't think about this ahead of time, but I had a few different ones to talk about. Our family took a trip to Alaska once, and we flew up to Seattle, and we took a cruise around some different areas of Alaska. And so it was neat to see heritage and history and spend family time together. We got to fly in an airplane over the fjords and see the water and see the wildlife on the mountains, and so that was interesting. But I don't know, just take a few minutes and share one.
Swallow first. Well, thank you for the opportunity. I think probably one of my more memorable vacation trips was with our RV club, and we had quite a itinerary where we went. Our main objective was to go to Yellowstone, and we experienced quite a swing in temperatures. Our first night on the road stopping was in Mesquite, Arizona, and it was 108 degrees. And then we stopped at Salt Lake City, and then we got to Yellowstone. We spent a few days on the west side of Yellowstone, and then went across over to the Grand Tetons and camped over there for a while. And the temperature overnight got down to 29 in the Grand Tetons, so quite a spread from 108 degrees to 29 degrees. But then my wife and I split off when the rest of the group headed home, and we went on to Cody, Wyoming, got to tour the Cody Museum, and then went to Devil's Tower. If any science fiction buffs see the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Devil's Tower is where they filmed a lot of the scenes there. And the owner of the land at the base of that Devil's Tower made so much money from the studios because they were filming on site that he took that money and built an RV park, so we were able to camp right at the base of Devil's Tower. Really breathtaking sight. And then probably the pinnacle for me was Mount Rushmore when we got over there, and had an opportunity to return back after visiting in the daytime, came back for the evening presentation where they have a narration by one of the rangers giving the history of Mount Rushmore, and as they slowly bring up the lights and illuminate the monument. And at the culmination of that, what was really special, and still gives me goosebumps thinking about it, they invited all military veterans to come out of the audience. It was a big outdoor amphitheater, and they invited the veterans to come down on stage and be recognized. And just the show of support from the audience as we were stood on stage, and they went by one-on-one, asked us what branch of service and when we served. So it was a really special moment. And then we returned back through Colorado, visited my daughter who was living in Colorado at the time. So it was a great trip, a lot of good memories and special moments.
I got one. Testing? Okay. Well, I think I've been blessed because I've been on vacation all my life. I try to make the best out of life that I can. I think God blessed me with a good heart, a good soul. And I've flown a lot, especially when I was in the IT business. And I've hopped states, went state to state, installing systems in financial institutes. But I guess, yeah, and when I was in the Marines, I flew a lot. I was on a ship. I was with Fleet Marine Force. Went to Guam, Philippines, and I guess as a single man, that was my best time because I didn't have to worry about a wife and doing anything bad. But I guess the most precious time was when I was newly married, and I had a job out in New York City, and I had my wife fly out there, and we stayed and got to enjoy like a month out there while I was installing a system, and it was nice, to have your new bride out with you and spending time in another state and enjoying life. The only problem was, like Russ said, I think the weather there was minus something. I just don't know what it was, but it was cold. You walk outside and it felt like needles were hitting your face and poking you. But life to me is just, I make the best out of it. You know, I lost my son, but with God's help, I know that, you know, I use a phrase that he beat me to heaven. And we all are going to go to heaven, or the majority of us. But I think I'm just blessed and I'm happy with life. So that's it. Thank you.
Last year, me and my wife went on our honeymoon to Spain, and I've never seen so much greenery. We stayed, I can't pronounce where we stayed at, but it was basically, I have a timeshare and I switched, for somewhere international. And we were pretty much like in the mountains, and I guess what I didn't know was that when I booked the place, it was in the off season. So when we got there, it was so let me tell you about how I do stuff. When I go somewhere, I don't plan the itinerary like all day, like what we're gonna do. It's pretty much after we get off the airplane, that's there's nothing planned. So I like to have kind of an adventure kind of thing to kind of just see how it goes. And so everything was planned up until when we got off the plane. So we had to get to this place that was 4 hours away. So I had to pretty much learn the bus system and all that stuff just as fast as I could. Realized I couldn't get there, had to take a cab, which cost me $500 to get from the airport to where we were going. And it could have only cost me $30, but I didn't know about the long, I guess it would be similar to our Greyhound. But we get there. The people were upset because we got there after they closed, which was 5 p.m. And then we get into the little apartments, and the lady's like, "We'll just handle everything in the morning." And that was funny to me because if you go stay somewhere in a hotel here in America, they handle everything right up front. And so we get into this place, and I almost cried because it was so small and tiny, and I was trying to do something nice for her. But as soon as she opened the door, I almost cried because I thought where she opened it up, it was like 2 bunk beds for kids. But it wasn't kids. It was how small it was. And I thought, but then she showed us more rooms. I was like, okay, cool, because I thought it was just this. I can show you guys pictures, and then you'd be like, no wonder why you was scared. But even she was like, dang. But, cause I was like, what did I get? Cause the timeshare I have is real nice here. It's spacious. The rooms are really big. I don't know. But it's that room was so small compared to what we have. But what was nice was the people were nice. They speak Spanish, but it's a different kind of Catalea or something like that. And so I was on Google Translate a lot just to communicate, and seeing stuff they don't put eggs in the refrigerator. It's all left out. A lot of stuff isn't really refrigerated. What kind of was weird for me was they have meat just hanging, everywhere, and it's kind of seasoned, so it lasts or whatever. But yeah. And then so we spent a whole week there, and then I could tell you guys all of it another time, but then we went a whole week there, and then we went to Paris the next week. So we stayed in Paris. That was easier to navigate. That bus system, you picked that up really quick. But I had to go to Paris because my father's in the military, and I heard about this place, Bellawood, where they, I guess the Marines got their name, the Devil Dogs. And so there's a fountain there. I wanted to get, the legend is if you could get water from the fountain, it'll extend your life. So I went out there to Bellawood, got the water from my father and brought it back, and he was able to drink it. But that's why I wanted to go out there. But Paris was nice too.
Good morning, everyone. My favorite type of trips are road trips, and I've been fortunate enough to visit I've visited 49 of the 50 states so far by car. But I would say my favorite place to go and my favorite trips are to Italy. I've also been fortunate enough to travel internationally a few times, but Italy is home, and even though I'm Norwegian, it's home. So anytime I can take some time off, or enough time to spend at least 2 to 3 weeks over there, I do go. Unfortunately, I haven't been there since I got on council. So it's time, but thank you.
All right, next we're going to go around and tell how you chose to be living in Hemet today. So, Joe, do you want to go first?
Well, after my mother passed away, we lived in Whittier and stayed out there and took care of my mother after my dad died. And actually, it seemed like she took care of us. I mean, she made the best tortillas you could ever imagine. And so we came out to heaven because my wife's mother's out here and her sisters, and I felt that I owed it to my wife because she really dedicated her life to God and then to me, her husband, and has been there for me all the time. So I wanted to give her some happiness in life and bring her out here. So we came out about 15 years. Actually, we came out in '94 for 2 years, but I was still working and commuting, and we still had a house in Whittier, so I would stay out there during the week and out here on the weekends, but it really got tough. So after 2 years, we sold our house in Mayberry and went back to Whittier and bought another house out there and stayed there. And then in, I believe, 2005, I guess, or 6, we came back out to Hemet after my mom passed, and we just made the best we could in life. Like I mentioned earlier, I lost my son, and that's what actually drove me to wanting to run for this position. I just, in my heart, want to do the best I can for the city. That's where my heart is. I believe that everything that we do in life is guided through God, or, I believe it, not everybody, but I believe God guides us to good things if we're content in life and we believe. And so this run for city council, I felt it, and I went forward with it. And my main objective was to really work on the streets and try to, clean up the streets and help our businesses, help our community without having to deal with all this violence that we have in this city. And I didn't realize there was so much paperwork. I didn't realize there was so many meetings. But, I mean, it's something I got to deal with, and I'm going to deal with it. So I thank you for everything.
Well, I got located to Hemet under the Witness Protection Program. No, I'm just kidding about that. Actually, it was pretty much an accident that we found ourselves moving to Hemet. My wife and I spent most of our lives growing up in the city of Claremont. We both graduated from Claremont High School. We got married in Claremont. Our kids graduated from Claremont High. But once they got married and moved away, we were looking at model homes on weekends. We'd go get some ideas on remodeling the house that we were in. And so that was our weekend outing, and we heard about a place that was being developed in Beaumont, but this was in 2005, and if you remember, that was a real wet winter, and so the construction was behind schedule, so they didn't have any models to show. So we jumped back on 10 Freeway, and my wife said, well, I have a coworker that lives in Menifee, at Menifee Lakes. Let's go look there. And so we got off, came down through Lamb Canyon, and it was gorgeous. The canyon was green, the sky was blue, fluffy white clouds, and we came down, and got a breathtaking view of the valley, and I said, this is really pretty. And my only experience with Hemet prior to that was when I was managing a girls club soccer team, and we had a game at Hemet, and I just remember that game. I don't remember what school we played at, but the field was pretty sparse with very little grass, and it was hot and it was windy, and we thought, boy, I hope we never have to play here again. But anyhow, we saw a billboard that said 4 seasons at Hemet, and so we followed the directions and took a look at the models there and fell in love with the place and said, you know, we can invest in remodeling our house but still be right next to the 210 freeway where they opened it up through Claremont, or we can just sell it and move here. And that was 15 years ago this month. So it's been our home, and we've enjoyed being a part of the community and all the different aspects that we have thus far.
All right, I'm 5th generation Hemets, or at least for the San Jacinto Valley. When I was born, we lived over on Montebello Place by the old Kmart, and then we moved over to Walnut Parkway. Then my sister was born, so it's my parents, my sister and I. We live here. My family all actually still lives in the valley. My grandfather is over at Seven Hills. He is doing well, and he was a rock Indian. I see Lori's here. My grandpa was a rock Indian out there at the pageant, at the Ramona pageant, when he was 5th, 6th grade. So he shows me pictures regularly so that I don't forget. So he doesn't get out much anymore. So, I'd like to take him around, but even further back, the Wellmans was my grandfather up in Camp Sherman, the Girl Scout camp. The house that my great-grandma raised my grandma and her siblings in is up there, and so it's a museum now. And so it's neat. We're due for another visit. The kids haven't been there in a while, but my husband and I have 4 kids. They are all here in the valley as well, and Hemet's our home, and we want to make it better. So we keep fighting to bring change. So.
Before here I lived in Oceanside. I did 7th, 8th, high school in Oceanside. Graduated from El Camino High. Went to go get my architectural degree in Anaheim, and then received my associate's degree, and then moved back home with my parents here in Hemet. So that's how I got, to Hemet, because I moved back home. I don't know what else to tell you guys.
I got here a long time ago. Anyway, I was born and raised in North Dakota, lived in Colorado and then Connecticut. My husband was in the Border Patrol, so we got transferred to San Diego and then Temecula. And at that time, there wasn't a Temecula, there wasn't a Murrieta, there wasn't a Menifee. Highway 395 was a 2-lane road from San Diego all the way up. So we were looking in Temecula for a house. We had 3 young girls, and there was nothing there, so somebody said, go to Hemet. And it was one of those reactions, what is a Hemet? But we came up here, and it was beautiful. And I just said, this is like a little part of Midwest drop down in Southern California, because Hemet is not like Southern California. We are extremely unique in what we do. But I've been here ever since, and as Carly said, Hemet is my home, and I love it here. It's a beautiful valley with beautiful people. So there you go.
Okay, so I want to explain a little bit about why we went through and gave these stories and told about ourselves. And I know all of you in this room understand this, but we are 5 citizens that were elected by the people. We come from different experiences. We come from different walks, from different training. And we don't get to sit around a table and talk and give our ideas, because unless it's in a public meeting, which is agendized and point by point by point, we have always full meetings, we don't get to sit around like this and get to know each other and talk about things we want to see in town, because it would be a violation of the Brown Act. So the reason we called this special meeting today, the reason that we have a table that's blank inside of our packet, is because we're going to be able to talk business today. It's an open public meeting, and we haven't been able to do this in a while. And I know Linda has asked for this for some time, and we just are going to do it today. So we're going to go down, and our first item that we're going to go through is the vision and purpose exercise. I don't intend that today we're going to have a vision and purpose statement, but if we throw out our ideas, we're going to write them down. If we have a subsequent meeting, we can come together and bring back everything that was built from today. When we go through our strategic priorities, this is a time for us to talk about the things that are important to you. So we will put all of our priorities. If we don't get through prioritizing all the lists today, this is session 1. So this is going to be driven by the council today and where we're going as a city. Policy priorities. Those policy priorities are things that may come out of different ideas that we have and that we need to put a policy in place. Just add them to your list as we go. So our format is not to give staff operations, right? We want to tell them this is where we want to be as a city. And the staff will take notes. Chris is here, our city attorney's here, and when we complete our sessions, they will be able to come back to us and say, this is how we can meet your goals. It's not our job to have to do that. So, okay, so starting with that, I'm going to start writing first, guys, but you all have markers, and there's pens and highlighters, there's Post-it notes, anything that you need to make things clear. But just to demonstrate, we are 5 people, and we have got to be able to work together to bring our experiences, like I said earlier, so that we are an example and our circles are overlapping, because each one of us has experiences that will help make our city move forward. The reason that we have this is when we set our goals, okay, our goals can be our rubric for why we do what we do and the decisions that we make. We hold each other accountable and we get together. The reason that it is so important is because everyone knows that it starts at the top, right? Leadership starts at the top. So we have our different departments in the city. We have got our finance, our police, our fire, our public works, our administration, our library, all the different departments. But how do these departments function like this? They don't. We can't be silos. All of our departments have got to be intertwined, working together. So if we're working together, they're working together. We have all of our different nonprofits in town. They all have a different purpose. But if we're going to be the example of teamwork, it will affect our staff. It'll affect, and here we have our circles again, and it's so important, the working together on things. And I'm not labeling all these, but the other one is neighborhoods. The neighborhoods are going to be just like these circles, right? We have all of our different homes. These people chose to live on the street for whatever reason, right? We all chose to live in Hemet, and we have our reasons. But if they're living on the street, house by house, in their own little circle, That's not going to help anything. These people have to learn to talk. These people communicate. And if we as a council can bring together our goals and encourage people with a mission and a drive, then I think that as a city, all the organizations can start working together more. I mean, I know we have come a long ways over these years. We have. And I've seen people more working together now than ever. But I think establishing our goals today, our vision, is real important because it leads the community and it helps identify our priorities. It gives people encouragement to work together also. Our city manager has put together a PowerPoint for us to go over some internal issues that, I don't want to say issues necessarily, but he's got some internal items that he would like to discuss.
So thank you, Mayor. It's great to see everybody, and thanks. Now, I think we can use this mic here. I'll just talk louder. Great to see everyone this morning. I made a couple notes. I think priority number one is Malcolm is not allowed to coordinate his conferences because he'll probably end up sleeping on the sidewalk. So Brenda will take the lead because of a story related to your vacation. So Brenda will take the lead on your reservations. Okay. That's all right with you, Malcolm. Okay, so I really wanted to take this opportunity, and I know that I've been talking with the new council as well as the existing veteran council members about the council manager form of government. So from my perspective, I just really wanted to set the foundation. The council manager government combines the strong political leadership of elected officials, which is shown here, with the strong managerial experience of an appointed manager or administrator, obviously me. So, perfect. So, all power and authority to set policy rests with an elected governing body, which includes a mayor or chairperson and the members of the council, commission, or board. In turn, the governing body hires a nonpartisan manager who has very broad authority to run the organization. And I'll talk about some of the nuances that I'm doing as the manager of the agency that we're doing internally to help get some of the outcomes that the council hopefully talks about today. The source of this information is the International City County Management Association, ICMA, and the League of California Cities. So for those new council members, you may have heard this earlier this week. So how does the council manager government work? Well, the elected council or board represent their community and develop a long-range vision for its future. And again, this is the conversation partially today. They establish the policies that affect the overall operation of the community and are responsive to residents' needs and wishes. To ensure that those policies are carried out and that the entire community is equitably served, the governing body appoints a highly trained professional manager on the basis of his or her education, experience, skills, and abilities, and not their political allegiances. I should add here that I've had some council members ask me, Chris, I can't really figure out your politics. That's good, because that's not my job. It's the council's job. So what is the role of the council? The council is the community's legislative and policy-making body. The power is centralized in the elected council, which, for example, approves the budget and determines the tax rate. The council also focuses on the community's goals, major projects, and such long-term considerations as community growth, land use development, capital improvement, and financing, and strategic planning. And then finally, as we mentioned earlier, the council hires a professional manager to implement the administrative responsibilities related to these goals and it supervises the manager's performance. Sure, yeah. Yeah, everyone will get a copy of this, and we'll make sure to make it available. So what is the role of the manager? So the manager is hired to serve the council and the community and brings to the local government the benefits of his or her training and experience in administering municipal or county projects and programs. The manager prepares a budget for the council's consideration, recruits, hires, terminates, and supervises government staff, serves as the council's chief advisor, and carries out the council's policies. The council members and residents count on the manager to provide complete and objective information about local operations, discuss the pros and cons of alternatives, and offer an assessment of the long-term consequences of their decisions. I worked in a city that went through a bankruptcy in years past, and one of the key things as being a staff member in that time was information was provided to the council related to the city's financial condition, and essentially the council approved budgets and moved forward on expenditures that didn't align with the message that was provided. So oftentimes the manager's office will provide information that isn't necessarily the information that the council wants to hear, but it's done to just provide that information with respect to the long-term consequences. And so that's probably the worst case scenario when you have financial decisions that end up being really a detriment to a community. So I've identified some items of what the council should not expect from the city manager and what you shouldn't expect from me. The city manager will not take sides in council member disputes. It's important that I maintain relationships with all members of the council. The city manager will not play favorites. This includes individual council member projects, ideas, or concepts that have not been directed or approved by a majority of council. So when council members would like to individually direct work or projects or programs, that's not the right process that it needs to go through. It really needs to be vetted and approved by the entire or a majority of the council. The city manager will not exercise political leadership. So the manager will not be out front on community policy issues. Sometimes city councils want managers to take leadership, advocate publicly on controversial issues to avoid potential political consequences to themselves. I try and, as much as possible, stay under the radar and not get involved in the middle of these types of policy issues that oftentimes do come across councils or communities. So what the council should expect from the city manager, and I hope that you've been able to see this in how I operate. I will remain professional. I will acknowledge errors and mistakes because they do happen. We are human. The council should expect me to communicate with them often, and then providing the same level of information to all council members. And then you should expect me to do my best to carry out the policy direction of the city council as long as it is legal, ethical, and within the boundaries of operation. And so I've included the ICMA Code of Ethics that I'm a member of, and those are the code of ethics that I do abide by on a daily basis with respect to how I operate. So I'm nearing the end of my slides, but you'll notice that the executive team is not here, and I wanted to lay the foundation as to what the council should expect from the city manager's office as it relates to takeaways from these discussions. So I will participate in the conversation today, but today is the council's opportunity to identify the long-term goals, vision, and direction for the city. I will take the information and work with the management team on how the staff will best achieve the council's vision, goals, and direction provided. The executive team, as I mentioned, is not here so that the council can really drive this conversation. Under my leadership, The staff will not drive the policy or goals, but we will provide the expertise on ideas that may work for achieving the council's goals. And this is really a significant deviation from how the city has really operated in years past. This different approach is a change, and it's new to many unfamiliar with the council manager system, including the existing staff that we have. So it's really important to have the council be in the driver's seat and the staff really being the rowers that get the city to where the council envisions the city to be. So with that, the council provides the direction, the council identifies those goals, and the council does establish that vision, which in part comes to the city manager. And then my team will put together, I refer to it as kind of the meat on the bones that have been created. And that's how essentially this plays out. So the staff is not in the driver's seat. The city council is in the driver's seat. And we help achieve what it is that the council wants. So as the mayor mentioned earlier, there are some things that the council should be aware about that I've talked with you individually in our one-on-one discussions that are relevant to kind of the internal view of the agency and the organization. On the financial side, PERS costs, they continue to be an issue for the city and they continue to grow. So just in fiscal year 21-22, so when the council receives a budget in just a few months, we should expect about a $600,000 increase in the upcoming fiscal year in the police department and the fire department. And that will continue to rise. So always having that on the back of the mind is something that is always on my radar, as well as the finances team radar as well. Other post-employment liabilities, OPEB, increased costs and expenses will continue to rise on a go-forward basis. Those costs will at some point decline, and I make this comment that at some point these people will leave the program because they'll die, and so that's when you'll really start to see those OPEB liabilities decrease. The city is still under the state audit since 2016. Culturally, inside the organization, there's this idea and this concept that the city gets by barely by just making ends meet. That's really the reality of what we have inside the organization. On the personnel side, we've got a lack of salary increases for non-safety employees for over a decade. There's a lack of training opportunities, or as I refer to them, investments in our personnel. Turnover and retention continue to be a problem in this agency across the board. And there's a lack of consistent leadership. I don't know how many city managers I am, but you all have had a lot of city managers in the last 15 years. On the operations side, currently we're at about 74% of our general fund is allocated to public safety. That leaves 26% left for all non-safety general fund operations. That creates some challenges because a lot of the conversations I have with the council really are involved with that 26 part of the operation. We've got an increased number of quality of life complaints. We are as close as they come to a full service city without the necessary administrative capacity to handle all operations. We've got our own police and fire, we've got our own water utility, we've got a whole host of public works services. So we are we're similar to other cities that are much larger than us when it comes to that specific issue. We always have to be mindful about Measure U resolutions and internal services, and I bring that up because sometimes in the achievement of transparency, the Measure U resolutions create conflicts with respect to internal services, and we have to be mindful about what that means on a go-forward basis. On the infrastructure side, the CIP, the Capital Improvement Plan, has not been updated in 4 years. That's an area where it's just basic core level of government work that happens at a local city level, and that hasn't been done for a number of years. I refer back to some of the challenges with the inconsistent leadership that we've had here. The radio system for public safety is underway, and that's another part of the infrastructure that hasn't been addressed in probably over a couple decades. The ERP system is outdated, so the information that we get from our finance system is a very antiquated system that hasn't been updated. Our backbone has not been supported, resulting in inefficiencies and staff doing the same thing, the same way of doing business for a number of years. The water utility has been neglected for a significant amount of time. So today's reality, and I think second to last slide, 2021, today's reality, we've got turnover and retention challenges, we've got high service demands, we have a new council, we have significant infrastructure needs, we have the opportunity to value and invest in our employees, we've got limited resources, there is an opportunity to change the narrative internally and externally. Financial sustainability is something that is always on my mind. Engagement with the community, and at the very end, leadership matters, not only inside the organization from the management perspective, but also on the council perspective. So that's why I'm really appreciative of this conversation with the council. All that to say that that gives rise to opportunities to change moving forward. And then finally, changing the culture. When we talk about the wide breadth of opportunities that I have to manage the operation, I've been having conversations with my executive team about performance matters. ICMA has identified these benchmarks that are used across the entire U.S. to really allow managers to understand how an agency is performing. So what I've told the staff is, gone are the days of just adding staff for the sake of adding staff. It really needs to align itself with what are the outcomes that are associated with adding personnel. So really having a data-driven process to understand why we add staff, and really when it comes to the council's priorities and the council's goals, what are the metrics, what are the outcomes that the council can expect when these opportunities are brought to the table. So Mayor, that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Next, we're going to work on our vision and purpose exercise. You going to help with this? I'm going to redo these boards. Malcolm, you want to talk a little bit about vision and purpose, and then what we'll do is we'll start with our mission, and our mission is just essentially will end up being a sentence or two. But if everyone wants to throw out adjectives, or I'll be a writer here.
So one of the things that I noticed was that I never saw a vision or mission statement on the city's website, but the other surrounding cities have a mission and vision statement. So I thought it would be a good idea that it's pretty much what I talked about when I was running was we have to get a vision and at least create a vision and a mission statement for him. So I really am excited that we put together something like this. But I have a couple of things here, which would be I just wrote model of excellence in local government. Honest, open, democratic government. Strive to gain respect. trust and confidence of the citizens of Hemet. I think the primary responsibility obviously should be to those who live, work, visit, and others who come in contact with him. Committed to enhancing quality of life, supporting community with dignity and respect, and fairness. So I think those should somehow be in the mission statement. Does anyone want to go next?
Well, I have a little bit different perspective, I guess, and I wholeheartedly agree that we need a mission statement, and I think the mission statement needs to be very succinct. It basically defines what is our role as a city council, and the things that many of the attributes that Malcolm just described, I think I would put in a category of a values statement. What do we value as a community? And I think those, if they're values, that to me speaks to things that we seek to achieve. The mission statement, I think, is, and many times, and I put together a draft, and it's just a very long run-on sentence, but just looking at other organizations and looking at their mission statements, that's usually what you see, is just a definition of why they're there. And then that supports that mission are goals, priorities, and values. So all of those things, I don't have no disagreement with the attributes that Malcolm enumerated, because I think they're important. And probably highest among those are respect and trust and fairness. I think those are critical, and they go both ways. You know, we have to trust each other on the council. The community has to trust us, and we have to trust the community. So those are arrows that go both directions. And fairness is an absolute must, especially what we see in the world today. There are too many inequities, too many applications of double standards. We see it daily, and I think we get frustrated that there doesn't seem to be anything that we can do about it. So those are my thoughts right now.
Can I hear your draft?
Sure. You want me to read it?
Yes.
Okay. Like I said, it's a lengthy sentence, but what I came up with, the mission of the Hemet City Council is to provide effective leadership and policy direction which preserves, protects, and enhances the physical and financial assets of the city ensures fiscal sustainability, provides effective public safety, and a desirable quality of life environment for the benefit and enjoyment of all residents and businesses in the city. So it doesn't really define anything necessarily, but it just says that's why we're here. Sure. I'm sorry, if I'd thought ahead, I could have made copies of that, but I didn't want to be too presumptive and pass my stuff out.
I have a, want to hear my draft?
Sure.
HIMMET will maximize opportunities for social and economic development while retaining an attractive, sustainable, and secure environment for the enjoyment of residents and visitors. Through responsible and professional leadership and in partnership with others, HIMMET will strive to improve the quality of life for all residents living and working in this community.
I'll take a copy. I didn't write anything out. How about that? However, there's always a however. I think, as I agree with Russ, well, that mission statements need to be very short and succinct and just incorporate our basic values. But also, for me, those basic values just are really quite simple, that there is a quality of life in our reputation that will attract people to be here and to keep people that are here. Also, the quality of our schools. And to me, the mission goes further than just us and in the valley, because if we don't grow as a city, then we're going backwards. So that type of reputation needs to be addressed, and also that we welcome new business community, but that we support the business community that we have. And I think there's a loyalty involved in that as a city entity, we take care of our own, that we look after our own, and that's about it. Because in many respects, that quality of support is something we've had for at least 110 years in varying forms, 111. But we don't get that message out. So whatever we come up with quote, a mission statement, has to be daily up front in our minds. We have to get it out to the people. As a community, we need everyone to buy in on the fact that this is the mission. This is who we are. This is what we are doing. This is what's important.
You ready for me? Well, mine's based a little differently here, because when I was here in '94 for 2 years, HIMMET, it seemed like the whole community worked together as one, and it was beautiful. From what it was then to what it is now is totally different. But I believe we should put emphasis on cleaning up our city. That HIMMET works hard to keep our city clean. Works hard with business leaders, wants to our partner with our business leaders and citizens and trying to set a goal and keeping the city as clean as possible. Housing, our city is working with trying to get housing for our homeless and making sure that no others go homeless, or whoever's lost their job in the recent past, that, you know, we can help them, that Hammond helps its citizens, and and we're looking at bringing in new business also, so we need to also put emphasis on that, on businesses. And that's about all I have.
Okay, so our mission and purpose, like Russ said, values, I like that, value, our values. Do we want to define this any more? Well, if we had a vision statement, if we have a statement of our values, do you want to add bullet points? Do you have more to add to this? You have more, Russ? Got a whole page, Russ, I saw that page.
Yeah, and our city clerk just took my document to make copies for everybody, so when he comes back. But I did break it out into using the headings that you had in the booklet, mission statement, which I read, and in purpose statement I had like bullet points enumerated there, and they were not necessarily in any priority. I was just kind of taking dictation from my brain as the ideas popped in there. And then priorities, I listed that.
Don't do priorities yet.
No. But that's what's going to be on the sheet is short-term and long-term.
But do you want to talk about some of the purpose, or do you want to take us back?
Yeah, let's wait till he gets back.
Do you want to go more on purpose?
For purpose, I have improved quality of life by addressing root causes of crime. I know we have affordable housing, but I'd like it to be like access to safe, affordable housing. It's interesting that the more affordable it is, the less it seems like the quality of life goes down too. You know what I mean? And I think there's something they use in economics called the Gini coefficient, where it's something like if there's a discrepancy or a gap between the people who don't have anything versus the people who have something, if there's a huge gap between it, you'll see a higher level of more crime in the city versus if everyone was poor or versus if everyone was rich. So if as long as there's this gap between the two, then you'll always see like a higher level of crime. So increase tax base, high quality jobs, I think this goes along with what Chris stated earlier, which is maximizing the use of public infrastructure. Improving our natural assets and the aesthetic beauty here, so that more people can have that experience that Russ, when he came down Lambs Canyon, you know. And then, you know, something important to me is building upon the diverse cultures here in the community. And I guess figuring out how we can maximize, you know, our workforce, the programs we have, the facilities, and then our financial assets.
Joe, do you have more you want to add? Do you have more?
Well, what I put
Under
down.
for purpose or?
Under purpose,
Mission.
I hope this is right, but we discussed getting a grant writer. I don't know where that's at, but I believe that would help our city a lot if we had a grant writer. I've seen so many grants available for cities, for nonprofit organizations, that we can apply for city grants through the state and the feds. So I believe if we were to prioritize that, that would really help us out a lot.
We're going to wait and save that for after the break, and we'll add that to our priority area. Okay, Russ, he's got his paper back, so I'm ready.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, got it. Over here, you just.
So, what City Clerk just handed out is copies of what I put together. And so you see the mission statement is at the top, and it's just one long run-on sentence. And then following the template that was in the booklet that the mayor handed out, I went with the purpose statement, and I had the City Council mission may be accomplished through the following means and measures, and I listed 12. These are not to be all-inclusive. They're just what, like I said, I kind of took dictation from my brain, and when things popped into my brain, I tried to capture it. So open and honest communication among council members. And as I mentioned, these are not necessarily in any priority sequence. Mutual respect and trust of one another. Respect and trust of staff, respect of community members, and planning and execution of capital improvement projects, enforcement of rules, regulations, and laws, prudent fiscal accountability, assertive pursuit of desirable grant opportunities. That's what Joe just mentioned about going after grants. Positive interaction and collaboration with the business community, and active participation in regional, county, and state organizations. I think that's really critical. We are somewhat of an island here in the valley, but we cannot operate in isolation because everything is interconnected. And I think it was on the Cal Cities Zoom meeting that a comment was made and repeated more than once. They said, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And that really struck a chord with me, because that really sums it up. If we're not represented in these regional and state activities and endeavors, we don't have a voice. And so I think it's important that we maintain that, our tentacles into those organizations. The last two I had under a purpose statement is application of contemporary strategies, technologies, and best practices and adherence to sound ethical practices and principles. So those I listed under purpose. Okay, so under values.
Can I interrupt you for a minute?
Sure.
Of course I can. I always interrupt.
You already did.
I think somewhere in this, and I don't know where, that we need to add that we preserve our history and our heritage. Because this valley is so rich in history, and we tend to forget it, and we need to be extremely proud of where everyone has come from and the successes we've had, and to rely on that going forward. But also, someone mentioned, I think it was Malcolm, preserving our natural beauty, but also to focus on that natural beauty as far as the outdoor activities, the lake. We have so many natural resources that can be a financial benefit to the city and the valley. Now you can go on.
That was a very worthy interruption. Yeah, that I think that's really critical, what you commented on about preserving our heritage. Because we do have a very unique heritage in this valley and in this city.
And we should put emphasis on this, even on our website. And we should put emphasis on this beauty that we have here in the valley and put it on our website so people can see and people can come and, observe it all and get a piece of it. I don't think everyone knows what we have here, or they don't have an idea of what we have in history here. So if we put it out there on the web or something, we could draw more tourists, for one thing.
So I mentioned earlier that underneath, I guess, the mission statement is the overarching, in my mind, the overarching role that we play and how we get there, and we have the purpose and then the values. I think there needs to be a clear statement of what we value as a city council. So I think I listed just 9 here. Again, these are not necessarily in any order, and they're not all-inclusive. But the value statement is, as the elected governing body of the city of Hemet, the city council values include, but are not necessarily limited to, honesty and integrity above reproach, professionalism in all that we do, adherence to applicable laws and governing documents, fair, consistent enforcement of city ordinances and regulations, transparency of decision-making and governance, accountability for decisions and actions, collaborative work efforts among the council members, management, commissions, committees, and community members, and respect for everyone's rights and entitlements, and pride, creativity, innovation, participation, and teamwork. And like I said, those are not all inclusive. I'm sure that we can come up with other things that we value, and I think it's important that people know what their elected officials do value.
Okay, some of the things I wrote down on mine: sustainability, clean, family-oriented, equipping others, whether it's neighborhoods or different opportunities, celebrating our uniqueness, and that goes back to the beauty of our valley, well-maintained, innovative and forward-thinking to meet the community needs, empowering people's ability to thrive, to be a stronger community. We want people to choose Hemet. Tangible improvement, stabilization, clearly communicating sound leadership and best practices, preserving our history, service level commitments, while adapting to the evolving expectations, because as our community grows, we still have to be able to meet the needs. Sound fiscal stewardship, becoming a vibrant, sustainable economy, fostering an environment for individuals and businesses, and giving the opportunity of economic security. And I think Linda hit on that already too. So, all right, does anyone else have anything else they want to add to our mission and purpose section?
Yeah, on one of these, just commenting on number 7 that Russ had down on his value statement, collaborative work efforts, which is absolutely imperative. But I think we need to call out the Chamber of Commerce on that too, because the Chamber needs to be a very active partner with the city and with the businesses to go forward.
All right, does anyone else have anything else they want to add to this? We can, obviously, this is session 1, so we have a lot. I mean, if we just want one sentence for us of our values, we're going to have to cut this down. We'll just have meetings like this, and we'll get this done. All right, let's see, what time is it? It's 9:23, so if you guys want to take about a 15-minute break-ish, and then we'll come back and, I don't know, resume our priorities when we get back. Okay. Okay, we're going to bring this meeting back to order. City Clerk, before we begin our next session, do we have any public comments, either teleconference or in person, since new people may be joining? Or
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My understanding is that we have someone that just came online. Recently, he was not here when you called for public comments. So I think our IT staff will connect the president of the POA, and I believe we have him on board.
Hello? Can you hear me?
yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Matt Hyatt. I am the president of the Hemet Police Officers Association.
Okay, go ahead. You have 3 minutes. Are you still there?
His connection might have been lost, Mayor, but obviously we can hear him. His reply.
Hello?
Go ahead, sir.
Can you... Did it go through? Can you guys hear me?
No, but I'm going to put the microphone right here by the phone, so go ahead and have your 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. I really appreciate it. Hi, my name is Matt Hyatt. I'm the president of the Hemet Police Officers Association. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank the mayor and council for putting this meeting on. We as a police department, regardless of association, are watching and listening to what's going on. We believe this type of strategic plan is forward-thinking. This plan provides a vision. It establishes strategic priorities and identifies objectives. A strategic plan provides performance indicators and benchmarks. And this type of plan is an action plan for reassessment and continued focus. Again, I wanted to thank the mayor and council for moving forward with this agenda, and we are excited to work with council to achieve these goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else on teleconference? Scott? Okay. Nobody else in this room? Okay. Then we are going to move forward now with our next segment, and it's strategic priorities. We have an hour scheduled right now for strategic priorities, and again, I'm just going to let you guys pass the mic around. We don't have an agenda for this. This is about us communicating and talking about the things that we have been in touch with our community members about, things that you have identified from experiences in our city that you see that we need to make a priority. So I'll get the pen.
My,
Okay. When we're going through these, we can flip back and forth. It's fine because I just have these boards up. But we have our ongoing priorities, and our ongoing priorities. Oh, can you click that to the next slide? Sorry. Our ongoing priorities are things that are going to be a priority always, and we are constantly striving to achieve. Our strategic priorities are new projects or things that we need to address and put a little more emphasis into. And then we have our future priorities, and these are dreams for when we get to a certain point, then we would want to see these items. And so we will add those to future priorities. And some things, can't get done until the foundations are laid, right? But we still can put them on our list. So, all right.
Okay, I'll go. This ongoing priorities, so these would be things that we do all the time. Kind of, I guess, the underpinning of our priorities. Public safety and quality of life, infrastructure maintenance, public works projects and services, efficient work practices and policies, cost-effective programs and service delivery, and user-friendly public access to city services, information, and programs. So I have those listed as ongoing.
Okay, whoever wants to go, you want to do all ongoing first? We can still jump around, but let's go around and do it with ongoing.
Okay, ongoing. My ongoing priorities are working with businesses that need our help and, communicating with them and trying to get whatever grants that we can get for businesses that are losing funds while this pandemic is going on. We stay in touch with the communities. We need to reach out to them. We need to have some type of community event that we can get to know our citizens and they can get to know us. Right now, they just see us either on Facebook or on these meetings that we have, but they don't have any understanding of who we are and what we represent. And if they knew us, I think it would be a lot better. So maybe have an open house or something for the businesses and citizens and just get to know them. That's about all I have.
okay, so ensure that the financial statements include verbiage that explains discrepancies, to address concerns of the public, address blight. Now this is, I don't know if this could be done, but I thought about the planning and engineering departments to see if they could be creative in the way that they do their things in the designs of like in the future how it could deter or prevent people from sleeping on the streets and sidewalks. without it looking like it. Does that make sense? So just that speaks to how Russ was talking about being innovative. So department heads, and this goes along with what Chris mentioned earlier, department heads receive training to enhance their abilities to run their departments more effectively. Not that they're doing anything wrong, but based on what I've been through in my life, the manufacturing companies that I worked for had us in training all the time. They kept our quality up. They kept a lot of things. So I think putting people through training, investing in them, makes a person exceptional. So, yeah. And that's all I have for my ongoing.
Okay. Mine include continuing the street rehabilitation and potholes, very specific. Economic development in collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce and other businesses. Fiscal responsibility, maintaining our Tree City designation and keeping our parks clean, and graffiti removal and cleanup without big different colored boxes that paint out graffiti. How about that one? I think when you paint out graffiti with a different colored paint than the building, it looks just as bad, if not worse, than the graffiti that was there. But also in that, in doing the graffiti, looking at the option of the products that you can spray on buildings and walls and fences that not only help in the cleanup, but in some cases are repellent to spray paint. So there are things on the market I think we could look at to aid in our graffiti cleanup. And then I added improving the water company, and this is my pet peeve, and I'll say it publicly. City of Hemet has the worst tasting water in the world. And if Lake Hemet and Eastern, who are taking water from the same aquifer that we are, if they can have good tasting water, why can't we? That's it.
I'll just read down my list, and some of these are already on here. Organizational effectiveness, community messaging, engagement. I think our departments have started over the last year or two engaging more with the public, and so I think that that's an ongoing priority that we need to keep. Enhancing diversity and inclusiveness. And that kind of goes into the community engagement part, but trying to, one of our community members at one of my recent coffees was talking about, and I think this goes back to what Malcolm was saying, but getting all of our neighborhoods included in city decisions. And we have some poorer neighborhoods that don't feel safe and maybe not even included, but we want them to feel safe too. So our hand is out for everyone to come to the table. So I think that we need to make sure that we keep promoting that we make sure that they feel included too. Quality activities, parks, recreation, Linda already talked about that. Adopt consistent operating guidelines. I think that Chris has been establishing those since he's been here, and I think that we're making progress, but it still needs to stay on the ongoing list because we have some more to complete still. Let's see. Access to relevant, accurate data. You probably already talked about that. Oh, and I have water infrastructure on here. There we go. Okay, good. Okay, then next we will start listing out our strategic priorities. And these are priorities that are maybe new projects that the city's not necessarily working on, or things that we need to, that we've dabbled in and maybe we need to get behind, whatever. I'll let you guys start with that.
Okay, listed under strategic priorities, and again, these are not necessarily in any particular order, but the first one that popped into my mind is Strategic Traffic Enforcement Plan, that involves the 3 E's of traffic safety, and the 3 E's are engineering, education, and enforcement. And the next I have effective program and practices to address homelessness problem. And next I have cannabis ordinances and allowable cannabis businesses. That's still on our to-do list. That we have to move that up into a specific priority to get that set up before we have somebody coming again with a citizen initiatives that's going to force the issue. Definitely we need to get relief from being under the thumb of the state audit and that oversight, so we can breathe a little more freely. And then I have implementation of our emergency medical dispatch program. That, I think that's significant, since we recognize that over 80% of our fire department calls for services are medical emergencies. One of the effective ways to make better use of our field resources is to have a screening process in place that can screen those calls and provide service in another fashion other than sending fire apparatus and firefighters. And then the last one I have is attainment of items currently listed on our future agenda council list. I'd like to see that list dwindle down to a little bit of white space, that we occasionally throw something on there when something comes up that we didn't anticipate.
All right, who's next?
I have increase affordable and quality housing options, reduce the number of individuals and families experiencing chronic homelessness or at risk of becoming homeless. Going out to cover some of the graffiti with non-matching paint. I've seen people, like families, living in their cars, you know. And I'm like, there's Valley Restart, and last time they checked, it was full. Support, I guess. Improve access to mental health and addiction services, collaborating with nonprofits. Investing in culture. Increasing neighborhood safety, and increasing participation, and we'll see how this goes, but in recreation. And that concludes concludes my presentation.
You did well. Mine are similar to a lot of Malcolm's. In Clean Streets, a program called Adopt a Street. Caltrans has that on Adopt a Highway, and different groups can do that, and just doesn't have to be Florida Avenue. It can be any street in town or any area in town, which goes along with neighborhood cleanups and adopt a neighborhood, whether it's a 1-block area, a 6-block area, whatever, and whether it's a nonprofit or a faith-based community or just people that want to get together and go out and pick up trash and do stuff like that. Also, and I know COVID has a whole lot to do with that, but really have an active neighborhood watch like we used to. And that is highly preventing crime when neighbors look out for each other. Also, the IT upgrades so that we can maximize staff's productivity in getting the reports out that we all need to keep track of where the city is and where we are in our fiscal responsibility. And then one that really gets mentioned to me every week by a couple people, and that's our internet reputation. That somehow we convince people to talk on social media about the positive things that happen in our city and in our valley and not the negative. Because if you Google Hemet, you get the worst things in the world. And those of us who live here know that we have more good than bad, but it's only the bad that gets out. So our internet reputation and social media reputation, I think, is really, it's so important going forward. That's all I have.
What I have is infrastructure, our roads, our sewers, our lights. Maybe if we can get the City Works Department to work on our sewers and trying to block the homeless from living in there. I seen a video that really amazed me on how they built a whole little town in the sewage area off of Stetson. And I live close to there, and I was thinking, are they under me? Or but anyways, future roads, maybe in and out of Hemet. I know they're working on 74 and 79 right now, which is good. I just don't like the center divider, especially where our parade route was. I don't know if this is where we would put grant writers, but we need to get a grant writer, and that should be a priority. That should be one of our main focuses for the city. With the grant writer, we can accumulate so much money for different projects that we have in the city, helping the homeless, cleaning our streets. There's a lot of grants out there for COVID-19 businesses, and we can, help our businesses out. And that's one of my main focuses, is trying to get the business together and help them with this pandemic we're going through, so they can have the funds to keep their business open, especially our restaurants that are out there that haven't been able to stay open, and it's really bad. Bring the police with their canines to parks and get to know the community, get to know the kids. Bring a fire truck maybe to a park, get something going at the farmers market, and where the police and firefighters can get to know the community and the community can get to know them. Clean our sports parks. I took a drive around and looked at our softball fields and baseball fields, and they really need to be kept up. And I think if we can get the tools from the city possibly, and then have the community go out there and clean up the parks, especially our fields, since they're not being used, so they're really getting bad. So, just it's all centered around the community, trying to get them to know us and work with us. Thank you.
I want to add to his grant proposal, but it's something like grant writers can also write their salaries in the grant. So it's not something like, that I don't know how that would look, as far as the city is concerned, but I know that there are times when the grant writers can write there. So it's not like we have to, I don't know how that would work as far as getting them to agree, something like that, but you could write your salary in it.
So Mayor, if I could add something on that specific item,
one thing in particular with the grant writer is this conversation will help allow the grant writer to prioritize what it is that the council wants. So without this conversation, the grant writer is essentially just going after whatever they or staff feels is the best interest. So that's why this conversation is so important, to align what they will go after with what the council is really looking forward. And then in addition to that, the council may want to think about that, if an item is a strategic priority, then the council should really think about allocating funding to whatever that priority is and not waiting for a grant. So that's just a comment on that.
So our priorities today that we're setting will give staff the direction to plug a grant writer into what we define as our priorities. Not today, but through our sessions.
If I could add to that, Carly, on the Joe's comment about the parks and that the baseball fields or the fields are in bad shape, we need to understand that's a collaborative working with Valleywide, since they own those, and we own Gibble, but that's the only field, and Brubaker. I keep forgetting Brubaker, but absolutely working with Valleywide, that it's community.
Okay, good. And keeping those, partnerships together. I mean, like you said, with the chamber, we've got the Simpson Center here. One of their board members messaged me yesterday, and what can we do at the Simpson Center? And
Can I, what was the other park you said we owned? Gibble and?
Brubaker down by West Valley High School.
we have a lot. I think Oldman and, okay, I understand what you're saying.
Said what? We have facilities, yes, for seniors to go out and stay healthy, but a lot of them are Valleywide.
Okay, I'm going to read to you my list, and I'll just have to print it out or write it up there. I have addressing historic levels of neighborhood disinvestment, and I think part of that is what we said, adopting a block or figuring out how we can, again, either as a city or, and will be staff looking at different programs, but partnering with nonprofits is a big way for us to make progress. And so that whole circles that I was drawing earlier, this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about, is we've got to do that. Safe business districts. I think that maybe a year or two ago, they started a business district group. The chamber was involved, and so I think we need to revisit that, maybe figure out how we can add safety to it, because a business owner just talked to me yesterday, and they're trying to take the wood down from their building, but I think they spent $8,000 replacing glass, and more of that has gone out the window of their product. And it's hard on these small businesses. And so what do we do? And boy, I had to get back to them on that one. We got to figure out something to do. Okay, I wrote down police enforcement events. And maybe these are things that we could get grants for. Maybe these are things that we need to put money towards. But we've lost too many people in DUIs this year, even in areas where who is driving drunk down Florida, at the random times. Traffic collisions. These are just, an example of an event. Distracted driver events. And even police-focused crime prevention. So all of these are obviously heat mapped and targeted type of things, but these are just ideas that I wrote down that fit into the problems that we have or that I've seen. Drug and crime in consistent areas, lighting and cameras. Figuring out how to address that. A developed facility master plan and a comprehensive maintenance plan for our city. And maybe we've been working on that. I don't know, but it would be nice to have a plan. One-stop economic desk, incentives for new businesses. I think everybody's already hit on that stuff before. Review municipal code, identify gaps and missing ordinances. We have lots of those we identified just on Tuesday, right? But as we go through and become more efficient, we've got to, I think, get right with our ordinances. leverage partnerships and collaborate solutions to enhance our quality of life services. And we do have so many nonprofits in town, and I even hear people say, oh, I want to start a new nonprofit. And we have so many, everybody just needs to join hands and we can get the jobs done. Street rehabilitation plan. I know that we have our slurry seal plan, but some of our Menlo is falling apart. It dents rims when you drive down that. There's like some chunks missing of the street. I don't know where those chunks go. I mean, they're big chunks. They just can't disappear, but they're gone. So I know that our public works like fills it with that fill stuff, but okay. City messaging. This is what Linda said. Changing the narrative. Even a city PIO, so that we have ways to address and get the word out. Let me see. What was this other? I can't read this. Oh, marketing. Marketing our city. Public safety, creative expansion to increase quality of life. This was kind of, I read something on some other cities, and when I say creative expansion, it's like they, like say in their public safety departments, they add different areas where that person, like right now we have our CSOs, you know, there's different, so that there's room for promotion, there's a pool of people, you know. We can do that in our different departments to create a pool for the next level of service. All at the same time, we are meeting the needs of the quality of life issues. So there's a whole bunch on that. Oh, I have cannabis on here too, Russ. We've got to become regulators of cannabis, because then it won't be unregulated. Okay. Increase our boots on the ground in police and fire. Show a difference. Reduce blight, cleanliness through solution-based community engagement and positive reinforcement. So, I say this whole positive reinforcement, I think that the people in Hemet want to see a difference in our streets, and I see a difference, but I think because I know that what we're working on, and so I look there. But you understand, like, we know the projects, and so we look at them and say, oh yeah, that changed, but the citizens need to see a difference, and so that will all go with messaging. The solution-based community engagement and positive reinforcement. Try to create positive reasons for people to do the right thing. You know, slapping somebody with a ticket every time isn't necessarily going to fix the problem. Going and dropping them off at jail so that we have to pay the booking fees and then they're back in 12 hours. We've got to figure out how to deal with the system of California, with Riverside County District Attorney, with, you know, the failure to prosecute crimes in our city. We need to figure out how to come up with solutions to address those. Staff retention, appreciation, recognition, motivation, training, adequate staffing, and reducing fatigue. I mean, even I walk through, you know, everybody thinks, oh, you know, it's not just public safety who's fatigued. I walk through our building and planning department. I walk through the finance department, and they're working hard. And we need to make sure that we have adequate recognition, encouragement, training, and staffing.
Carly, on that issue, quite frankly, I don't remember the last time we honored employees for longevity at a city council meeting. And they used to receive pins and certificates, and I believe it was for like every 5 years that they were employed. And it was, I know when we did it, I think the first year that I was mayor, and it was it was amazing how many 20 and 25-year pins and certificates were handed out to employees. I mean, these are loyal people and they do good work for us. And just saying thank you goes a big way, knowing that they are appreciated for the work they do. So I think that it might be something that we could reinstitute quite rapidly.
Yeah, I think that's really important that we recognize the service and the loyalty for lack of a better term, that a lot of our staff provides to us. The city that I used to work for actually had a city employee committee. They called it Employee Development Advisory Committee. It was another acronym. They called it EDAC, Employee Development Advisory Committee, and it was made up of representatives from every department. And they were the ones that took the lead in tracking anniversary dates of employment. We had 5-year PEN, 10-year PEN, 15-year. They would organize different city events like a city employee picnic and those kinds of things. And it really went a long way to creating that bond and recognition. It's hail. My wife just texted me. She says it's hailing really hard. So it's our turn now. But those kinds of things create an opportunity for employees that don't necessarily interact with one another to get acquainted and in a social setting too. So that was very valuable in a city that I worked at.
Do the employees have suggestion boxes?
Do the employees have suggestion boxes?
They don't. We actually started a pseudo committee with respect to that. That's, you'll recall, the gingerbread houses that we made, ornaments, those types of things. But we can definitely expand upon that.
I'll tell you guys, on your tables, I gave you guys each a pack of stickers. And give these freely. These are not the city seal, so that we don't have to get in trouble for passing out the city seal. But it's just an encouragement to people and something positive to look at. And, we're starting something new today, and we can look forward to this. But what I want to tell you is, I went through some departments the other day, and I handed out these stickers. And I just kind of handed them out, and the looks on their faces, they were encouraged, but I felt horrible because I'm like, it just took a little bit of like, here's a sticker, like, thanks for doing what you're doing. And it made them smile. So each of you, think about, you may be out running errands, or you may be, running by the city yard. Even if you just stop and say hi, we're not giving them direction. We're not doing anything except just showing appreciation. And that's okay. I think it would go a long ways. We've got lots of people out there in our city working, and they want to feel appreciated because they work hard for us and for our citizens. And then they read Facebook, and then they hear what a horrible job they do. And so it's always nice for somebody to tell them that they're doing a good job, besides just Chris. So, okay. Let's go next to future priorities. You guys have future ones, or did you put them all in the first one? I just want to know. Okay, where's the pen? Come on, Linda, you gotta have future.
Well, I do. And future priorities basically is continuing a lot of what we've just talked about already with ongoing and strategic. But I think the economic development in the category of bringing industry, and some of that's already in progress, but we need to have a concerted effort. And I guess this is working with, like, the working group and Valley Economic Development Council that we used to have here. I know Eric and Lori were both involved in that. And that was an offshoot of the Chamber of Commerce. When I was director of the Chamber of Commerce, we had the EDC, and then it spun off into its own entity and became the Valley Economic Development Council. And it was both cities. Oh, well, it was the VEDC, and it was a board of 15, yeah, I see heads shaking over there, about 15 different people from the city, the county, the business community, the chamber, and they were proactive in going out and recruiting different types of businesses to come to town. Very successful. And it was the city, the county, and the city of San Jacinto, and I think even the business community bought in financially so that this group could really have a strong presence. And that has been lacking for quite some time. I mean, the city had an economic development director up until about 5 years ago. And when John Jansen took another job, we never filled the position. But it's so important to have that type of marketing material and that type of outreach, because if you take a business, a successful business that's in town, they deal with numerous vendors, and that's a good outreach to say, instead of us having to pay shipping costs on bringing all of this stuff into the businesses that are in the community, why don't you open have a branch of your business closer in? We can save on costs. This goes way, way back into the 80s and 90s when I was at Phillips Gasket, which is the complex on both sides of Menlo down at Buena Vista. We were a Caterpillar aftermarket soft gasket manufacturer. Our international business was bigger than our domestic business, but our shipping costs to go to the port or just to bring the things in that we needed were extremely high. So we reached out to all of our vendors and said, you could open a small place here and you could do this and you could employ local people, and it's a win-win-win situation. So, that worked. And unfortunately, Phillips Gasket was so successful they got bought out. And anyway, they all went back to Chicago. But it's that type of outreach from our successful business community that attracts more of that type of business, and then there you go, the better paying jobs for the workforce that is here. And one of the things that I don't know if it's WRCOG or whether it was through RTA or SCAG or one of those other entities that I go to meetings at, they had done some research on highway congestion and freeway congestion. And 73% of the workforce in Hemet drives a minimum of 40 minutes one way to go to work every day. So, that's a large percentage of our workforce, and the different areas that they even track, the different highways and freeways that they used. And people here go all over. They go east and west on the 10, they go north and south on the 15 and the 215, they go east and west on the 60 and on the 91. We're everywhere. People in this valley commute, and we need to bring industry to them. So, we need an EDC. Don't jump in. Somebody else says something.
So, future priorities, increase current levels of service, like across the entire board. Improve resiliency to respond to future challenges, like being proactive if we have a major earthquake, we get flooded out, some kind of natural disaster. Even so, as far as to have like a citywide, I don't know if this is possible, but like a citywide fire drill. You know what I mean? Like something where, like a citywide fire drill, where we practice something like that. Manage congestion and travel times. Increase access to transportation options. Improve the quality of pedestrian environments. That could even include supporting like healthy, active lifestyles, but then also creating a situation like I thought, with that, what kind of agreement, or could we do something with the Caltrans to putting up a fence in that median to deter the people from crossing from jaywalking, I guess. What could we do, something pretty, future. I did want to bring up something that somebody, was actually our city attorney, had a conversation about. I was telling him about how I would like to get the community together. And so he introduced to me something called neighborhood associations. And I thought that'd be the easiest way to get all of our different neighborhoods to kind of bring those circles together that Carly was talking about earlier. So, and then it would be something like all the neighborhood associations would have presidents, and those leaders would then essentially communicate with the council so that we would know exactly what the citizens of Hemet, we're not just kind of guessing just because we see what's up, but those neighborhood associations. And then plus, I think it could also go along with how we could create those neighborhood events that bring closeness and cohesiveness. However that neighborhood establishes their organizations, they could come up with their own names, that we could foster competition between each neighborhood. So it could be like the neighborhood that's like, if you're looking at the Lake Hemet, the neighborhood that's on the right of West Valley, the neighborhood that's in front of West Valley, there's like 3 neighborhoods there, and then there's the one across the street on Sanderson, and that new development over there, where there's always accidents at Mustang and Sanderson. So it's like so within the neighborhood association, it could be like best yard, who has the best yard, who has like that's kind of clean, who there helps the most, like just kind of their neighborhood associations are recognizing each neighbor themselves. And then the winners of maybe just say a yard, right, competes with another neighborhood, and then all the neighborhoods, it could even just go as just districts, the best yard in all the districts, something like that. But I think the neighborhood associations could also go inside of apartment complexes, and that would help those associations kind of figure out what they would celebrate, because they don't have yards, for example. So I just wanted to kind of share that with you guys as one of the things I'd like to see, as far as, because how I'm always talking about bringing the community together. And I think creating neighborhood associations also goes along with Linda's idea of neighborhood watch, because they can also include that in there. And then all the presidents are talking to each other, what's working, what's not working, if crime levels going down, this and that, and they're working with the police department to kind of talk to their, to make sure that, when you walk around the house, oh, this is a weak spot of your house, you could get broken in here, how can we beef up security in this area, things like that, And then I think it'll create that cohesiveness, that sense of safety, because people are actually getting to know each other. Does that sound good?
So along the lines of the neighborhood watch, there are a lot of organized neighborhood watches, but it would be good to open up the city to take the lead in those, because right now we have a lot of people using Nextdoor. I mean, I'm the lead in our neighborhood, but we've got all these different neighborhoods. Our neighborhood's real private. They don't like to do that whole post on everybody else's next door, but our neighborhood's a little bit smaller, but there's still, about 200 people participating, but it has helped in deterring crime and paying attention. I mean, we've in our meetings, we tell people even to come home a different way, so that you're getting to know all the neighbors on all the sides and whose car belongs to who. Because we had some incident we've had squatters and all kinds of stuff, but one lady was new, and so she didn't know, but she watched somebody move out a bunch of furniture, and so she thought the neighbor was moving when in fact they were being stolen from. Yeah, it was like 2 years ago, but yeah.
Do you remember a couple years ago, well, more than a couple probably, and I believe the police department took the lead in neighborhood watch get-togethers, and it would be a 2-3 block area, whatever, and somebody would volunteer their front driveway, and whoever had that beat would come from the police department, and sometimes the chief, and then all the neighbors would come over, and it could just be conversation, or if somebody wanted to, bring their barbecue out front and have something going on, that's extremely beneficial to bringing neighborhoods together. So that type of socialization, so to speak, because there are times when people do not know who their neighbors are, and it's very important for security.
And then they feel more comfortable reaching out for help, right? And even if, I've got in my neighborhood, there's the ones that will not call even the non-emergency number, and it drives me nuts, but at least they're going to call somebody, and so then we can have it addressed, right? So fostering that communication, and I think that all leads to, if the if the city is involved and the police department's involved, they used to come out to our neighborhood, and I think it makes more of a connection there with your city, right? So it's more on a personal level. But I'm thinking the same thing for cleanups and trash, because if they know that these guys are driving around picking up the trash, that one little piece that people are littering, it adds up, and it's disgusting. But if they know who's picking up their trash, maybe they'll be a little more embarrassed before they just flick it out the window. I don't know, that frustrates me. The things I have on here were community spaces, promoting healthy lifestyles. That's someday, it would be awesome to have that. Adding different artistic elements to our infrastructure someday when we're clean, and then we can go on to the next step, right? So they've done, if you think about the different cities around us Oceanside, you mentioned Oceanside, and it's come a long ways in the things that they've done. And so there are models that have improved.
Yeah, there are, and a couple of them, there are initiatives out there that City of Hemet has never signed on to, and one of them is Healthy Communities, and the other is Healthy Lifestyles. And there are resolutions that the city can pass to, quote, join this group, which makes you available, or it makes grant funding available for the different bullet points that are listed in those resolutions. And one of them is the street pole flags and signs. Riverside, the city of Riverside does a very good job with designating different areas of their city as healthy lifestyle, active walking, active this, and it's not that they're a rich city, because they have issues too, but it's because they have qualified for some grant funding, whether it's from the state or the feds, in proclaiming that different neighborhoods are buying into this. And it's something, we had a Healthy Communities resolution brought to us back in, it was, maybe like 19, in like 2014, something like that. And it was all, everybody, all the cities were buying in on it, and came to our council, and we voted it down. And I'm going, what are we doing? But since then, there's a couple individuals in the county that I'm working with on things that I don't necessarily report out to council all the time on, but that I'm involved with in bringing this type of stuff to the valley. So I think if we could bring that as a resolution back to the city council and publicly have that resolution done, it would qualify. Maybe sooner than later, because it doesn't cost the city any money to do the resolution. And I know Luis would be more than happy to come and talk to us about it. So actually, I'll make the phone call next week. And thanks.
We have an incredibly robust list developing, and I'm sensitive to the fact that our city manager is over there getting writer's cramp and thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So first on my list of future priorities, and it may need to move up to strategic, is recruitment and retention of adequate city management staff to support.
You don't mean me.
No. To support our city manager.
Did you see the handwriting on the wall?
Our city manager, I think, is operating like a one-man band.
I think that's sooner than later.
I think it's sooner than later. I think the executive level of City Hall really needs some staffing support because
If you can clone Erica, that would be a help.
yeah.
The reason why I brought her here.
So, okay, well, we'll move that one to strategic then. Revitalization of the Hemet downtown area. Proactive street rehabilitation program to repair roadways. And by that I mean we've heard from our city engineer that some streets are way beyond the ability to solve with slurry seal. They need to be just ground down and repaved. But I think in the future, I think putting together a comprehensive, proactive plan and looking at all the streets, and that way people can at least know that the street of concern to them is on the list somewhere, and it's going to be addressed at some point. Much like we do with future traffic signals, people talk about this intersection is really bad, we should put a signal, and well, it's on the list, but generally those things need to wait for some development around the area that will fund that. Coordination with RCTC to achieve the fulfillment of the Route 79 improvements. I think that's going to be real significant to get that. We need to be outspoken again. It's having a seat at the table again, and Linda is on top of that all the time through RCTC, and I think that's where it needs to be. This is very specific. Get a Costco or a Sam's Club in Hemet. There's two things that I hear repeatedly in the community. One is traffic, and when are we going to do something with these scofflaw traffic violators that are running stop signs and running signals and speeding and spinning donuts and all of that? And when are we going to get a Costco or a Sam's Club? So, I know that future councils have probably endeavored to do that, but I think it needs to be somewhere on our priorities. And then, kind of in line with, I think Linda mentioned this, effective development of open space with revenue enhancing businesses or industries. We've got a lot of room for development, and if we can bring in businesses that are going to enhance our revenue picture, I think Malcolm touched on additional revenue as well. So the kinds of things like the business that's coming in, although I don't know how the name of the business, Chinese laundry shoes, but the concept is drop ship. And I think that can be a real benefit to our community because it brings jobs and it brings revenue without a real appreciable negative impact of traffic. So those kinds of industries would be good to go out and look for. So that's all I have on future priorities. I think the list is long enough that we could spend an awful lot of time.
Yeah, we do have a lot of overlap. This is something in the future, but speaking of traffic lights, I think we should make Sanderson and Mustang a hard left and maybe put a right turn on only between specific hours. Like you can only make a right turn. I think it'll greatly reduce the traffic incidences that happen there. You know what intersection I'm talking about? Oh, so you can turn left at the light into the place, the houses there. Like you don't have to wait for a left turn because it just lets you go. You can just turn while it's green. You know what I mean? You know how like on I don't know how to explain it. You know how on Lyon and Florida, so you're at Lyon, Florida, next to Shell. You have to, if you want to make a left turn, you have to wait at a red light. The light at Sanderson and Mustang, you can turn left on green, like at your discretion.
You're talking about putting a signal there, a left turn signal?
A hard one, so you can't just turn whenever you want.
Yeah, I think the term is you have left turn signals, and then you have another signal that's called protective permissive. And that means it's a protected left turn when it has an arrow. So the signal is called protective permissive, and that means when you have a green arrow, you're making what's called a protected left turn because you have the right of way. And then you have the permissive, so the green arrow goes away and then you just get a green light, or it's permissible to make a left turn when it's safe to do so.
Yeah.
So traffic engineers call that a protected permissive signal. Is that what you're talking about?
We got to get rid of the permissive one.
Okay, well, it's just a controlled left turn signal.
And then to put I think also too is to make it, you know, they say no right turn on red. We should add that, but only at like high traffic times.
I think, and I'm sure the city managers make a note of this, that the critical thing on that, as we've painfully learned, is that any time we introduce a traffic control measure, it has to meet what's called warrants. So you have to do a traffic study, and the action that you want to take has to be warranted by the traffic circulation, and it's a whole study that's done. Because if you put in a device and it doesn't meet warrants, then you own it. So if there's a collision or something and we put the device in there and it's deemed that we contributed to that, we're going to eat liability big time. So warrants help protect us, but they don't guarantee protection, as we found out, because we put in a pedestrian signal in that vicinity, and we got sued and we lost. And it met warrants, and it was deeply studied, and traffic expert engineering said that it was going to be effective, and it wasn't effective because there was a severe accident. Negligent driver and quite honestly, the pedestrian had some accountability, in my opinion, too. So you just have to be careful with those things. But there's a way to go about it, and you know, we have a number of intersections, I think, that we need to revisit. One of the ones that I think would go on that list is Devonshire and Warren. Devonshire and Warren is carrying a whole different load of traffic now because there is no 79. So people are using Warren as the 79 extension. So people that come from the north, and the commuters, they don't stay on 79 and take Sanderson to Florida. They cut over on Ramona Expressway and take Warren, and then they turn at Devonshire and get over to Florida and then Winchester, and then they do the reverse coming back. So that intersection is carrying a tremendous amount of traffic at a four-way stop that it never used to have, because Devonshire didn't used to go all the way through. And so the good thing about Devonshire going all the way through is it's better access for emergency vehicle response to the west end. That shaved 5 minutes of response time off. But with the development of the Winco Center and whatnot, you've got more traffic going through that intersection, plus the commuters that didn't exist. So those kinds of intersections that have taken on a different volume just because of development, we need to be mindful of those. So I'm sure it's on the radar screen of engineering to look at that, but they've got plenty of things on their plate. But it all kind of goes under, you know, what I was talking about, my strategic traffic enforcement plan. The engineering comes first, and then you have to educate the public, and then you have to enforce the people who education didn't work with. And there's a lot of different things. In my one-on-one with Chris, I've had conversations about some ideas that I know can work, because we have joint agency task force that do burglary task force and robbery task force and gang task force. I've seen very effective use of traffic enforcement task force, where you borrow motorcycle officers from surrounding jurisdictions and you do high-profile selective enforcement in chronic problem areas, and then you rotate around to the different cities. Those things are very, very effective. So hopefully we'll see that as soon as we get the staffing to where it needs to be.
Okay. All right, do we have anything else that needs to be added to this list?
I haven't
Yes.
spoke yet.
Oh, go, yes. Oh, sorry for future.
You know, my priorities are bringing the businesses together with the citizens and the city all together as one. And I think, you know, we have a lot of organizations out there, a lot of businesses. I actually got the list from the chamber of all the businesses in Hemet, and I sent them it's the week that I got elected, and I sent them an email letting them know who I was and if I could help them in any way, and I got a lot of positive feedback, and I thought that was great. And you know, I found out that they want to work together with the city, they want to be invested in the city, and you know, there's a lot of groups out there. You have the Elks, you have churches, you have the Rotary Club, you have the Veterans Organization, which I'm a part of. We want to help. We want to get out there and work with the city. We can create groups, you know, for cleanups of the city. And that's my intent, is to get the city out there to actually help clean up, get all the trash picked up, get all the graffiti painted over, and make our city look a lot better than what it does now. And I think we can do it if we worked on this. And, you know, we need to really work on the homeless problem. That's one of the eyesores of Hemet. You have people living on the street, and they're there daily. And you know, some of them are 5150 cases, and I just can't understand. I mean, I spoke with the officers the other day, and, you know, we just have no control over that. But darn, I mean, there's got to be a way to get them off our streets. New business. Costco was one of my plans also. You know, we need to talk to businesses, warehousing, tech companies, bring them out. We have affordable housing here, which is perfect for that environment. If we can get warehouses out here, big companies out here, tech companies out here, we have the affordable housing for them, but they're not going to come out here as long as our streets are the way they are now, so we got to make that a priority. We need to take advantage of whatever we can in the books and law books and to get our city cleaned up. I don't know much about it, but, you know, maybe we can do an expansion of our airport. That's something we can look at if it's viable. If it's not, then that's fine. I want to look into the train system, and that's probably your part, Linda, because you're part of the transportation committee. But I go over tracks on a daily basis everywhere. They crisscross here and there, and there's no reason why we can't get our train system back in order, and that would be great for warehouses, great for tech companies in order to get their product out, because their main concern is how do we get the product out. We don't live by close to freeways. But we do have Highway 74, Highway 79, I believe, and that is a good route. But if we can get our train systems up and running and allow for these companies to get their product out, I think that would be ideal. Just one of the things. Homeowners, a lot of them keep their homes up, and you have their neighbors that may not cut their lawn for months and all that. Maybe we should have a competition for them. Maybe the city should come out with, competitiveness in keeping your house clean or your yards clean, and whoever wins, have it on a monthly basis, have 5 prizes for dinner to our local restaurants, which will help them get business and keep them open. And, we can give $50 certificates for a restaurant. I'm sure these restaurants will participate and give us either discounts or give us free certificates. And I'll stop. I'm sorry? Yeah, hold on. Let me see what I hear. Advertisement of what we have to offer. We have Diamond Valley, we have Ramona, Pageant, we have the museums. I bet nobody here knows that the American Legion Post 53, which is the second oldest American Legion in California, has a museum. We have one World War I, World War II, Vietnam artifacts. We have all kinds of stuff in our museum, but not everybody knows about it. And we need to advertise what we have, that people that are vacationing might want to come and see. Now I'm done. Thank you.
Marketing what we have. Yeah, I added that to some of the lists. Okay, we have a really good list here. I'm sure Chris is excited. You wanted to know what our priorities were, right? This is good. Another thing I did not add on here, but we need to look at youth activities and youth empowerment and the future of our kids. So I know we have MSJC here. We've got to figure out how to incorporate experiences and jobs for our local youth so that they, don't get me started. Right now with COVID, everybody's shut down. And so, all those activities to keep kids off drugs, we're just giving them drugs now. So don't get me started. That is frustrating. But we've got to get these activities going. But if we have some sort of opportunity, and that comes back to our tech schools and classes and incubator, yes, exactly, to foster the ideas, because we have some very intelligent kids in our valley that can do anything. And so we need to be able to give them opportunity, because we don't need them to move away and go do something. We want to keep their talent here. So something along those lines. Okay.
I think on that, Carly, just the collaborative working with Hemet Unified. And they've really put an emphasis on technical training and coming out, and then they work with the college for AP classes and getting kids trained, getting our youth trained. But you're absolutely right. we as a city need to make sure that we know the importance of our kids. Very important.
And recognize our talents and put those talents to work, because they're important members of our community too, and they're growing up fast. Okay, we're a little bit behind on our schedule, but we'll take a quick recess and then we'll come right back here. Let's just say 10 minutes this time. Does that give you enough time? Oh yes, Malcolm has one more thing.
I think they're talking about adding skateboarding into the Olympics. So now that we got this future skate park, we might have some future Olympians here from Hemet. And so that's one thing, with the youth, we can foster something like that.
All right, we'll do a quick recess. We'll be back here. Okay, our next session is on policy priorities. So this may seem, but I know that there are some different priorities that we want to focus on. Some in particular we discussed on Tuesday night, but getting our ordinances in place, because without these policies, we don't even have structure. So we're missing some structure on some specific areas. But before we start, Linda had one more to add to our.
Yes, it was brought to my attention that we did not have a branch of development that we need to focus on, and that is senior communities. To encourage developers to not only build family homes, but to build senior community homes. Because quite frankly, senior community homes don't use a lot of police and or fire for the most part. As they really get older, we all know that we use ambulances a lot. But most seniors that retire into senior communities have a lot of discretionary income. Don't you, Russ? But yes, I think is that needs to continue to be a focus about it, because we have some awesome senior communities out here.
Malcolm has a big list, so I guess you get to go first.
Well, I have the staff training. The staff training and tools to enhance communications and public engagement between the something like measure and then it's like work on measuring and publicly reporting like all of the performances of our programs, and then increasing access to info to support community decision making. Increasing access to info, just making it really easy. Like access to info? Yeah, information.
I thought you said infill.
And then research and respond to emerging planning trends and issues. And then to appease future business relationships, we have to streamline customer intake and follow-up. It's like we want to make it easy to do business here, as efficient as we can. And then promote and strengthen continuous improvement projects.
I will. I don't have much. So, training for the entire city workers, including council, police, firefighters, keep up-to-date training for everyone that will make their job a lot easier. Maybe look into more applications that are being, like See, Click, and Fix is a great application for the community to input their information when they see something that's not right, trash, graffiti, and so on. And I've been looking into that and kind of like watching how quick things get done, and they're moving pretty good. So our city employees are working hard, and they do a good job. So when the public uses applications like this, things will get done, and I've been pushing it throughout my Facebooks and social media. And again, the workers in the city, I congratulate them and give them a big hand on what they do. Removing red tape on any new businesses that might come in. I heard, I'm not sure how if it's true or not, but I've heard that when companies come in, they got to go through a lot of red tape in order to bring in their new business. I'm not sure how many new businesses have come in, but I look forward to working with companies and trying to bring them into the city. So, and Costco was one of them, and trying to get tech out here and trying to go through some of my old contacts I had on CEOs that run the businesses. So that's about all I have right now. Thank you.
Okay, I just have a few, because I guess in my mind, policies are things that in this context, policies that council would set on how we're going to do things, not so much a focus on the end result, just how we're going to do it. So the first one I put down is to solidify our commissioner appointment policy. How do we select and make commissioner appointments? And I know that we had some discussion about that in the past, and Linda and I, as the ad hoc on the council protocols, have been dabbling in that a little bit, but I think that's something that we need to solidify. It is, there's a proposal in there on how to go about doing that, so that if that whole council protocol gets adopted and that stays in there, then we'll have it. But if not, we might want to break it out as a separate policy. And then along with that is the council protocols. That's something that will be coming to us shortly, but that would be certainly a policy. And then another one that we've talked so much about is the investment policy. And also related to commissions is perhaps a policy statement that speaks to commission's interaction with council. In other words, so one of the benefits of having a commission is it's a vehicle and a conduit of communication from the community to council. So if they have an issue, for example, if they had an issue about traffic signal being needed, now they could go to the Infrastructure Commission and share their concerns. The Infrastructure Commission, which is staffed by the city engineer, could address that and maybe resolve it right there, or make a recommendation from the commission to the council for council action. So I think maybe there might be a value to having some kind of a policy statement that addresses that interaction between council and the commissions. And then one that we've talked a lot about, and I don't know if this would be a policy, but maybe it would be valuable. We've talked a lot about the concept of pay for performance and getting away from the old-fashioned concept of step increases on longevity, because so often government, and not just City of Hemet, government in general, hasn't done a very good job in rewarding performance. They reward longevity. So if you're a warm body and you occupy your office and don't cause waves, at the end of the year, you're eligible for a step increase. And the whole concept of the private sector needs to be infused into the government sector. And a lot of cities are doing that, where performance is rewarded. And so I think maybe some kind of a policy statement that speaks to that would be beneficial.
Could we also add a policy that once we're finished with this and we kind of get like what we got going on, that every time a department head brings us something, that they can answer how it incorporates the mission into it? So that every time they're coming up with something, it's going along with our mission and the direction we set for the city.
That is how it should work out. Everything gets aligned with what it is that the council set out.
This really, I think, hits on something that Chris is concerned about, as we all should be concerned, and that is a policy of funding OPEB, and also maybe finding an alternative funding mechanisms for CalPERS. Because if we don't get some control on that one, we have no control over it until we do something internally that we can provide some type of a different funding setup that will grow faster than what the money that we give to CalPERS does. And I know we have an OPEB trust that council set up at least 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. And we need to do the same thing as related to CalPERS.
Okay, I have three notes written down here. We'll decide if they're policies or not, but they're just like Russ said, we're just putting it up here. I think that we need to implement priority-based budgeting and enhance communication in the budgeting process. I think what we're doing here is what I'm talking about, but we need to do this every year. We shouldn't wait. We shouldn't wait. I don't know if we...
You know, you bring up a good point, and I've checked with, other cities that do this, and way back when, in the 90s and the early 2000s, Hemet did this, and then when we ran into staffing issues because of recessions, we stopped doing it. And that is having, and I don't know if this is policy or not, but setting some council committees for departments. We always had a budget committee, and most cities today have budget committees made up of 2 council members and staff, and they were type of things that were really productive, but it also gave council a greater appreciation but also a greater look at finance and our budgeting processes. A couple years ago, we had a budget ad hoc committee, and it worked well. So I think maybe looking at different things like that, and I know the infrastructure committee, the thought processes behind that was almost to the effect of having that type of committee for public works and, streets and trees and all of those things, because we got rid of our traffic commission and our parks commission. So I think as a council we need to look at how we can have greater community input and maybe reestablish some of these committees or commissions. And I understand the staff issue and staff time, but some of these, depending on what we do, some of these groups could meet without staff. I mean, just for discussion on needs in the community and bringing things forward. I think also it would be beneficial if we reinstate the policy of having, what did we call them? We had community meetings in different areas. And there's 2 council members and whatever staff member wanted to show up. And it was really easy to do in HOAs. And it was amazing, the turnout from the people, but also the constructive comments. Because especially our senior citizens, they're the most talented group of people we have, probably, because they've all been through, and I mean, their professional careers, they can contribute a whole lot. And I know staff appreciated it. The first one we had, it was like, okay, we'll have the police chief, the fire chief, and the city manager, and any other department head that wants to show up. And every department head showed up. And they said, this is the only time we get to talk to the people. I mean, really find out what their concerns are. And a lot of it was, I mean, it wasn't silly concerns, but I mean, they were things that, okay, you as a citizen have to buy in, because a couple of them were, the street light is out on my street. Have you called somebody? Well, no, you should know. And it's like, we don't have staff that can drive around on every street at night and check whether or not street lights are out. So that is your responsibility as a citizen to let us know whether it's a city street light or whether it's an Edison street light, but at least notify somebody that something is wrong, that there is something amiss, a raised sidewalk, a tree, whatever. And that comes through involvement from the community. And we've kind of shut the community off the last few years just because we don't have staff to do it. But I'd really like to research having those committees or commissions, and if staff isn't available, okay, so it's 5 people or 7 people sitting in a room like this. This is an opportunity that we don't get to have. We don't get to talk about what's really important in our city at a city council meeting, because that is agendized and it's only what we have to say yes or no on. So these types of things, but the community needs to be involved too, and I can tell Russ is just chomping at the bit over there.
No, I just didn't want to lose the thought, and it goes back to messaging. That just occurred to me that part of that message should be not only do we need you reporting these kinds of things, but you have a financial vested interest in reporting these things from the liability standpoint. So if you know about a tree root problem that's lifting up a sidewalk and creating a trip hazard, and don't tell us about it, and we don't find it, and somebody trips and falls, we get sued. It's taxpayer money that goes out the window. So that needs to be part of the messaging, to bring people in to the fold and say, hey, you're part of the solution as well. That's all. Just wanted to coattail on your comment.
For 4 years. So, and at the coffees, I obviously don't have staff come, but it's the same every time there's somebody new, because somebody will see and they'll come, and it's just getting the information out there. But having staff there it just creates that connection, right? So that you feel more in touch with the city. I don't know. Yeah.
And I will add that the HOAs that we have are far more organized, shall we say. I know Four Seasons has that type of thing every so often. Panorama Village in my neighborhood, I go over there quite frequently. And if it's not now during COVID, not necessarily meeting with everybody, but at least meeting with their board in different scenarios and finding out what their issues are and talking with them. And I mean, it's you know, it's just good to have that connection. So I think we need to emphasize that a little bit more.
Yes, definitely. Okay, I have one more, and this is going to be an exciting one. I'm going to need a few pieces of paper. I know that, and I can't remember, I think, Russ, you might have been on council when we discussed this, but remember when we talked about internal service fees?
Oh, yes.
And pulling out internal service fees? Right now, I just think that we need some, and I'm just going to put on here, accounting solutions. And the council voted 5-0 to change the way we were accounting for our internal service fees. And so right now, in our city, you know, the retired public works and the retired fire and the retired police all comes out of their general operating budget. And if we changed it, it would have internal service fees. Many cities just have an internal service fees category. It still is all in the general fund, but it's a different way to categorize this. And so we don't need to decide today, but it's something that staff would maybe look at and provide us with some examples, or this is what is proposed. Maybe we would find out that it doesn't work out.
Mayor, can I
But-
add something on that?
Yes.
Maybe, when we talk about that, there's a very unique nuance there, and it has to do with Measure U. And so when we look at further resolution.
Well, hold on, I want to get there. Let me finish talking first. So if we switched out internal service fees, then we would have like our random departments, and then I'll just put on here IS, internal service fees. Then I know that we've talked many times about Measure U. So right now, our accounting for Measure U, right? We have fire general, even though we know it's all general, but let's just write it out here, and fire Measure U. PD, I can't write on this side. General fund, PD, Measure U. So what we have is now the income part of this is going to be fine. We don't have to change it because there's always going to be showing where the money is going into and what account. And again, I do not have any details of this, but if we have our income going into police and fire and we show the amount, our expenses are done the same way right now. And so what this does is divide our employees. So we have fire and police employees, and some under general and some under Measure U. So it creates a segregation, and everyone actually knows, the employees know, like, what, you understand what I'm saying? Like, they know what they are, and so you are that and we are this. And it doesn't create, if we're working on our other priorities as far as our employee morale and stuff, they need to be police or fire employees. So I don't know if staff could at least look at some solution to the segregation. We want to keep the money separate. We want to keep the money and show the income into police and fire, but is there a way to take these two, the income here, and expense it out as the large box so that we're not segregating? Okay, so we would have general fund income, Measure U income, because we have to keep the accountability. We promised the accountability, and we want the accountability, right? but if your staff, you might have to talk to an accountant, I don't know. It's just, I'm just throwing out, we've talked about this as a council, but we haven't really drawn it out.
So I know that one of the immediate issues, and back to the initial concept of the internal service charges. Okay.
It's going way too fast. Gosh, she's out of control. Okay, now, if we, okay, that's just another idea. This internal service fees, if we change this, right now, our public safety resolution is a certain percentage, right? We have 78% or 76% of the budget. If we changed internal service fees and take them out of police and fire, we'd have to calculate the percentage of the total funds and come up with a new percentage for this that matches the equality, but you guys can do that.
Yeah, and I don't.
Okay.
I don't have the solution to that, but it was that point that we want to be mindful about if we took out those internal service charges, because when those resolutions were adopted by council, they assumed that those internal service charges were plugged in there. So what the council should be mindful about is if a solution or potential policy solution is brought forward, that you don't want to create the situation where it appears as if you've now decreased police and fire because you've pulled out those internal service charges.
And I think our intention is to keep the money the same. It may even enhance public safety and fire if we're not necessarily paying all these, you know what I'm saying, out of that department.
So I don't have the solution, but I just wanted to get that on the radar.
Right,
for
right.
everybody.
And I know that we've talked about it, but we haven't really drawn it out. So I think there's a way to come up with a formula to be exact. And we can run that through the Measure U committee. I thought that Eric would still be here, but he's not. So anyways, those are just, I know that we've talked about this many times, but I think even on the policy part, as far as expensing the Measure U, not creating segregation in our employees. I think that's important. Okay, I have one more thing. Let's see. As we grow, our public safety response times have to make sure that we keep a high priority. I think we do that. We don't really get data, but maybe there's a way that we can, like Linda says, that we have all these departments, but even our only problem is we have all the little ad hocs is that only 2 would know. We all want to know. Just add it in our reports. You always give us good council updates, and I think our year-end we had a lot of stats. Even this last one.
Right.
So,
but I think
like stats.
That's absolutely important that, you know, on the ad hocs or on any standing committees or commissions, that we need to have updates through the city manager or the department head or whoever it is, because I will tell you there are times when it's like, oh, I didn't know that. I mean, I see it on Facebook. And we all know Facebook is accurate. So, and we really need to know before it hits the streets. But, you know, the statistics, you know, one of the issues is the faster we grow and the more traffic there is, the lower the response times are. And unfortunately, I don't know that there's any solution to that. All the cities are running into that, and we all have over congested streets. And when emergency vehicles come along, and if they can't get around, they
I haven't heard complaints. I'm just.
Well, interestingly enough, yesterday, I believe it was, I was going through Menifee, and their ladder truck came out, and I'm heading that way, and they're heading this way, red lights and siren. And I'm thinking something's going on the Don Magoni Parkway, right? Well, the next thing I get up to the next traffic signal and I hear sirens, and here's the ladder truck coming up behind us. They had to go all the way down to one of the streets that's blocked off by construction now, make a U-turn and come back around and go back going west. It was the most bizarre thing in the world. And unfortunately, that's what medians do and what traffic signals do. But, you know, we have to live with it. Just really crazy. And we're going to run into the same thing ourselves because our units can't go over the top of that median. I don't care what Caltrans says. They can't do it.
Awesome. All right, if there's not, anybody else have anything to add to this for today? Our goal here, I know that this is a lot of papers and a lot of writing. I was going to send them with Malcolm, and he's running to a meeting. But Malcolm and I are the ad hoc for this, so we will type these up and I know Brenda's trying to get everybody to pick a second date. And what we'll do is just type these up into the categories, and then we'll go through a system to prioritize. We'll try to combine the like things, and then we'll bring this back to you, Russ, our mission statement.
Did you want to go over the hybrid mission statement?
Yeah, go ahead and read it. I'm not going to do it today, but yeah, we'll just add it to the next one, just because he's got a boogie. But if we pick dates, and then we'll go over and, well, I mean, essentially keep the same format, and then take our lists and we'll get them to you ahead of time. You can work on like prioritizing them on your end so that when we come here, that we all can just build it up with numbers.
Just so everybody knows what I sent in an email to the city clerk, and he printed it out for you and shared it with you. I created a hybrid mission statement drawing from the draft that Malcolm presented and the draft that I presented. That's what's here for your consideration. The hybrid draft right now says the mission of the Hemet City Council is to maximize opportunities for social and economic development through effective leadership and policy direction, which preserves, protects, and enhances the physical and financial assets of the city while ensuring fiscal sustainability, effective public safety, and a desirable quality of life environment that benefits all residents, businesses, and visitors.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you. Good, see? So we'll bring this stuff back to you guys. We will adjourn this meeting if we have no further comments, and you guys get with Brenda on those dates.